So in the last episode we were talking about these 4 different stages of consciousness, or 4 different states of what our energy or our signal is doing. So in this episode I just want to talk about very quickly some of the skills that we need in order to clean up our signal, get a stronger signal, a more coherent signal, and also help grow our own awareness. So each one of these stages of consciousness or signal development, it isn't just about our energy or what is going on with us. It's at each stage there is a different skill set that we need to be learning in order to get our system to work that bit better, and as a consequence for our energy to get clearer and stronger, and our fractal to get clearer and stronger as well. So when we are unconscious, well, we don't know what's going on. We're kind of, literally all over the place because our signal is all over the place. So here we need to develop our ability to acknowledge, which enables us to be more present and more aware of what is going on. And little bit by little bit, when we do that, we start to perceive, under all of this chaos and white noise, we start to perceive our bits and pieces of ourselves. And when that happens, we then can start to get a signal that at least there is a little bit more of us in the signal more consistently. And so when we get to this stage, which is codependency, we do have something of our own signal there. It just depends on what's going on here with the other things that keep interfering with our signal. So if we are able to develop good boundaries, these things then help us get rid of some of these things that, all this sort of noise and stuff. We can actually delete that out of our system, and so start to clean up our space and our signal a little bit better. But both of these things here, we're actually dealing with the negative. We're actually working to get rid of all the things that we don't like. All of this static, all of this interference. The more that we can get rid of it, the better we do. But of course, once we get rid of enough, well, what do we have? We actually have a big fat 0, because the boundary between positive and negative is 0. And so that's what happens, is from here on up, we're actually working more and more to increase the positive. Now, how do we do that? Well, when we are independent, it means that we're learning to increase the positive for ourselves, because, all interdependency is founded on independence, but by which we mean we can't increase positivity in the world and for other people until we know how to do it for ourselves, which essentially means that we need to have a really solid foundation in order to be able to have a bigger effect on the world, if that effect is going to be a truly creative or positive one. So in order to do that, we have a couple of skills. Specifically Fractology skill that we use is the soul seat work that we do, which you'll find that on the website. Obviously, learning to tune into your own fractal is also a really good way to do that. But tuning into the fractal, it is a very high level of awareness. It's a fabulous skill, but we can learn to tune into our own soul seat resonance or our own signal a lot more easily than that. You can learn how to do it just by downloading the meditations that are on the website, in the product area of the website. So the soul seat is more of an energetic and more kinesthetic way of doing it. The way that we do it sort of more mentally is we learn to do it through our core values. Now, most of us have really only got 1 or 2 core values. that doesn't mean that if you think, well, I know what's important to me, but I have, 6, 10 core, values. It doesn't mean that those values aren't your values, of course. It just means that maybe they're secondary or tertiary values, and that underneath that, there is actually your core values, because, as I said, our core values are generally only 1 or 2. Think about your signal. See, when you clean your signal up, there may be a couple of harmonics, like your signal may actually be a chord or something like that, but there will be one dominant signal, and that is your absolute bottom line, and that's what your core values are. Now, when we're aware of that, makes making decisions a lot easier, because it means that we know what our top priority is. Our top priority is whatever that core value is for us. Now, as we practice these things, we get a stronger and stronger signal, and we get to be able to figure out how to create things, how to win for ourselves. And then, of course, we can learn to take the time to develop a bit more skill in how we win. We can actually learn to operate in such a way that we're not just increasing our integrity and our signal, but we're actually increasing the integrity of whatever else we're dealing with. Now, that's what interdependency is all about. So essentially, there are a number of skills there. Working energetically, we actually learn to work with what we call I call it the bridging harmonic, actually. Don't worry if you don't know what that is, because we will go over these things a little bit more later. Or there are some also some tools on the website to help you with all of these things. Okay, but the bridging harmonic is what enables you. It is like that chord. It's that third note that allows your signal and the other person's signal to be in the space very comfortably together without actually having a negative impact on each other. The other thing that we do is, so that's our energetic skill, and then our mental skill is something that we call resolution. Now, resolution is the ability for us to actually have our cake and eat it too. It's our ability to create a solution that actually works for everybody involved. It's not a compromise. Just let me be really clear on that. It is not a compromise. Compromise has often been described as a solution that makes everybody equally unhappy. One way to think about that is if we mess up everybody's signal equally, well, then nobody feels like someone else is doing better than they are. But here we want to do positive. We don't just want to try and minimise the negative. We want to actually create more positive. And so that means that we need to develop the skill of resolution. One of the parts of the skill of resolution is contextual thinking. Now, in our society, we don't actually think contextually very much. We're taught what we call content thinking. We're taught a lot of facts and bits and pieces of data. We're sometimes taught what to think, not necessarily how to think, or what is the context. In other words, what is the framework or the perspective that essentially works in this situation, but it's different in that situation. Anyway, we'll talk more about contextual thinking in the next episode. So I hope you really, understand that if you want to get your signal clearer and clearer and stronger, that it isn't necessarily something mystical. It is really just about starting to understand the way that your signal works, your system works, and actually the way the whole creation works, and that in order to be able to work with that, it's just about developing the necessary skill sets. And that's what we're going to be working on in the following episodes.